a werewolf romance written by Georgina Anderson. Prologue, The Last Stand. I remember the night my childhood ended. I was 10 years old, pressed against the cold wooden frame of our kitchen window, my breath fogging the glass as I watched my father die. The moon hung fat and red over the Elden Fields that night, what the old wolves called a blood moon. Grandmother Usmara had clutched my shoulder when she'd seen it rising, her fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "A bad omen," she'd whispered. "Blood calls to blood on nights like this." I hadn't understood then. I do now. Varkle the Iron Alpha stood in our doorway like a monument to everything cruel in the world. He was massive, easily 7 feet tall in his human form, with shoulders broad enough to block out the lamplight behind him. His iron-fang guard ringed our farmhouse, 20 wolves in their fighting forms, eyes gleaming yellow in the darkness. Behind my father, I could see my mother's silhouette. She was pressing my brothers against her skirts, Eric, barely 6, and Soren, just 5. Their eyes were wide and white with terror. "Kneel, farmer." Varkle's voice was like gravel scraping against stone. "Call me Alpha. Give me what's mine by right of strength." My father stood his ground. Eldrick of Greenhollow, they called him. Eldrick the Peaceful. Eldrick the Fool, some said, for trying to hold bloodright land without conquering anyone to claim it. "This land doesn't belong to strength." My father's voice was steady, even though I could see blood trickling from a cut above his eye. "It belongs to those who love it." Varkle laughed, a sound like breaking bones. "Then you'll die for dirt." What happened next is burned into my memory like a brand. My father glanced back once, just once, and his eyes found mine through the window. In that moment, I saw everything he wanted to tell me. "Run. Live. Come back when you're ready." Then he lunged. He wasn't trying to win. I understand that now. He was buying time. Behind him, in the chaos, I saw Tavin, our old groundskeeper, who'd been a soldier once, shepherding my mother and brothers toward the back door. My grandmother grabbed my arm, her grip iron strong despite her age. "Come, child, now." "Papa, now." She dragged me from the window, but not before I saw Varkle's claws flash silver in the moonlight. Not before I heard my mother scream, a sound that still wakes me sometimes, all these years later. We ran through the back of the farmhouse, through the garden my mother had tended, past the chicken coop where I'd gathered eggs that very morning. Everything was the same, and nothing would ever be the same again. Tavin had horses waiting. He threw Eric and Soren onto one, helped my grandmother onto another. When he reached for me, I twisted away. "I have to go back. I have to help." "Your father's orders," Tavin said, and his voice was gentle but immovable. "You're the eldest, Aderyn. You protect them now." He lifted me onto the horse behind my grandmother. I remember her arms coming around me, holding me in place as I fought and screamed. We rode, through the blackthorn wilds, across the silver vein, into the territory of Velmora where my mother had been born. Behind us, I could see smoke rising from Greenhollow. Behind us, I could hear sounds I was too young to name but too old to forget. Just before we crossed into Velmora, I heard it. My mother's scream cut short, final. Tavin's hand covered my mouth, muffling my cry. "Quiet, girl, quiet or we all die." We rode through the night. When dawn broke gray and cold over the Velmoran hills, we finally stopped. My brothers were asleep, exhausted from crying. My grandmother was silent, her face carved from stone. I stood at the edge of the tree line and looked back toward home. Toward the Elden Fields where my father had planted wheat every spring and where my mother had sung while she worked. "I'll remember," I whispered to the wind, to the land, to the blood moon that was setting now, pale and tired. "I'll remember and I'll come back." Something stirred in my chest then, something wild and angry and patient. My wolf, I would learn later. Even then, even at 10 years old, she was marking the debt that needed to be paid. 10 years later, I would stand in those same fields with my father's blade in my hand and my mate at my side, and I would collect. But that's getting ahead of myself. This is the story of how I lost everything, learned to love, and built something worth more than revenge. This is the story of how I became the alpha of the Elden Fields. Part 1. The Weight of Lies. Chapter 1. The cottage in Velmora was small, 3 rooms and a loft where we children slept. It sat at the edge of the Whisperwood, far enough from the main village that we could pretend to be invisible. For the first month, I didn't speak, not a word. I lay in the loft at night, pressed between my brothers for warmth, and listened to them ask the question over and over. When are Mama and Papa coming back? Grandmother Usmara always gave the same answer. They're on a long journey, my loves. They'll return when the time is right. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell my brothers the truth, that they were never coming back, that they were buried in the Elden Fields or burned or left for the crows. I didn't know which, and the not knowing was its own kind of torture. But I didn't scream. I didn't speak. Because part of me, the part that was still 10 years old and desperate, wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe it had all been a nightmare, that any day now my father would ride up that dirt path with my mother behind him, and they'd scoop us up and take us home. It was Soren who broke me out of my silence. He was 5, barely more than a baby, and he'd started having nightmares. He'd wake up screaming about the big wolf and fire and mamas crying, and one night I couldn't take it anymore. I climbed down from the loft and gathered him into my arms, rocking him the way my mother used to. "SHH," I whispered. "SHH, I'm here, Addie's here." "I want Mama," he sobbed into my shoulder. I know, baby. When is she coming back?" I looked up and met my grandmother's eyes across the dark room. She was standing in the doorway of her bedroom, watching us. Her face was unreadable. "Soon," I lied, because what else could I say? "Soon." After that, I became the one they turned to. When Eric scraped his knee, he came to me. When Soren had bad dreams, he climbed into my blankets. When they were hungry or scared or confused, it was my name they called. I was 10 years old, and I became their mother. The years blurred together in that cottage. Grandmother Usmara taught me everything she knew, how to recognize healing herbs, how to set bones, how to read the weather in the clouds. She taught me the old stories, too, the ones about the first wolves and the blood-right laws and the land that remembers. "The Elden Fields are sacred," she told me one autumn afternoon when I was 12. We were grinding rosemary in her stone mortar, the sharp scent filling the kitchen. "Your ancestors made a pact there, centuries ago, wolf and land bound by blood and promise. The land chooses its keeper, Aderyn. It cannot be taken, only earned." Then why did he? I couldn't say his name. Even 2 years later, it stuck in my throat like a bone. Why did he want it? "Because men like Varkle don't understand the difference between taking and earning." She paused, her weathered hands still on the pestle. "They think power is something you seize. They don't understand that true power is something you're given." I thought about that a lot in the years that followed. While I learned to cook and clean and keep house. While I watched Eric bury himself in books, growing quieter and more withdrawn. While I watched Soren grow wild and angry, picking fights with village boys twice his size. I thought about power and earning, and the land that supposedly remembered. And I thought about revenge. By the time I turned 16, I was no longer the child who'd fled through the Blackthorn wilds. I was taller than most of the village women, with my father's broad shoulders and my mother's dark hair. I could work from dawn to dusk without tiring. I could calm Soren when he raged and coax Eric out of his books and keep our little household running on the coins I earned doing laundry for the wealthier families in Velmora proper. But my wolf still hadn't awakened. Most wolves shifted for the first time around 13 or 14, some as early as 11. I was 16 and still stubbornly, frustratingly human. "It's not uncommon," Usmara assured me, though I could see the worry in her eyes. "Trauma can delay the shift. Your wolf is protecting you, child, when you're ready." "I'm ready now," I snapped. "I've been ready." "Ready for what?" I didn't answer, but we both knew. The night everything changed, I wasn't supposed to be awake. It was late summer, a few weeks after my 16th birthday. The windows were open to catch whatever breeze might stir, and I lay in the loft listening to my brother's steady breathing. Below, In the garden, I heard voices. Usmara and Tavin. Tavin still came by sometimes, though he lived in the village now. He'd aged badly in the 6 years since that night, his hair gone white, his hands developing a tremor he tried to hide. She's asking questions, Tavin was saying. About Greenhollow, about her parents. She has a right to answers. Does she? She's 16, Usmara, still a child. She stopped being a child the night we put her on that horse. A long silence. Then, if we tell her the truth, you know what she'll do. I know. She'll go back, she'll challenge him, and he'll kill her just like he killed Eldrick. Perhaps, or perhaps she'll surprise us. He's the Iron Alpha. He's killed a dozen challengers in formal combat. What chance does a 16-year-old girl with no pack and no training have against him? The land knows her bloodline. That counts for something. The land won't stop his claws from ripping out her throat. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. My heart was hammering so hard I thought they might hear it. Killed Eldrick. He'll kill her just like he killed Eldrick. I'd known. Of course I'd known. But hearing it said out loud, confirmed, was like being stabbed. The wound I'd been pretending had healed ripped open fresh and bleeding. What about her wolf? Tavin asked. It still hasn't. Trauma, Usmara said shortly. The shift is tied to emotion, to acceptance. She hasn't fully processed what happened, until she does. Then maybe it's better she doesn't know. Let her think they're alive somewhere. Let her have that peace. That's not peace, Tavin. That's a lie. And lies always come due. I didn't hear the rest. I was already moving, climbing down the loft ladder as quietly as I could. My brothers didn't stir. I grabbed my boots, slipped out the back door, and ran. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs shook. I ran until I reached the old oak tree at the edge of the Whisperwood, the one where my mother used to take us for picnics when I was small. And then I broke. I don't know how long I screamed, long enough that my throat went raw, long enough that somewhere deep in the forest, wolves howled in answer. I tore at the earth with my bare hands. I punched the tree trunk until my knuckles bled. I cursed Varkle and my grandmother and the gods and myself for being too weak, too slow, too late. When I finally collapsed, shaking and empty, I looked up at the moon through the oak branches. I'll kill him, I whispered. I swear it, I'll kill him if it's the last thing I do. And something answered. Not a voice, not words, but a presence, unfurling inside my chest like wings spreading. Hot and wild and patient, my wolf waking at last. My eyes flashed gold in the darkness. I saw it reflected in a puddle at my feet. For just a moment, I felt her fully, powerful, ancient, hungry for justice. Then she retreated, slipping back into whatever space inside me she'd been hiding in. But I knew she was there now, waiting, ready. When I stumbled back to the cottage hours later, Usmara was sitting at the kitchen table. One look at my bloody hands and tear-stained face told her everything. You heard, she said. You lied to me. My voice was wrecked from screaming. For 6 years you lied. I protected you. You let me think they abandoned us. You let me hope. My voice broke. Do you know how many nights I lay awake wondering why they left, wondering what we did wrong, what I did wrong? Aderyn. Tell me everything. I pulled out the chair across from her and sat, my hands clenched into fists on the table. Tell me right now, or I swear to the gods I'll walk to Greenhollow tonight and find out myself. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she sighed, suddenly looking every one of her 70 years. All right, she said. All right, child, I'll tell you. She told me everything. About the blood right laws, ancient rules governing sacred territories. About how the Elden Fields had been held by our family for 300 years, passed down through bloodline and care. About how Varkle had wanted it not for the land itself, but for the title. Bloodright Alpha. The wolf who could claim such territory had authority over surrounding packs, power that extended far beyond a few acres of farmland. Your father refused to fight him, Usmara said. Not because he was a coward, but because he knew the truth. If he fought and lost, Varkle would have legal claim. But if he refused to acknowledge the challenge, if he died without yielding, then Varkel's claim would always be contested. So he let himself be murdered. He bought you time. Her eyes were fierce. He bought you a chance, because you're Eldric's heir, Aderyn. By blood and by right, the Elden Fields are yours. The land knows it. That's why it's dying under Varkel's rule, because the land itself rejects him. How do you know the land is dying? I have friends in Greenhollow still. They send word. The crops fail year after year. The livestock sicken. Wells run dry or turn bitter. Varkel bleeds the village for tithes they can't afford, and still nothing grows. He's tried everything, sacrifice, ritual, violence. Nothing works, because the land remembers your father and it's waiting for his daughter. I sat with that for a while, letting it sink in. Then, how do I get it back? Direct challenge. Formal combat, witnessed by other packs. If you win, the land is yours by right of blood and victory. And if I lose, then you die, and Varkel's claim is finally legitimate. I laughed a bitter sound. So either way, he wins. Not necessarily. Usmara reached across the table and took my bloody hand in hers. Your wolf is waking, child. I saw it in your eyes when you walked in. But she's not ready yet, and neither are you. Varkel has been fighting for 40 years. He's killed dozens of challengers. If you go now, you'll die. Then when? When you're strong enough, when you're smart enough, when you've built the alliances you'll need. She squeezed my hand. Your father died to give you time. Don't waste it on a glorious suicide. I wanted to argue. Every fiber of my being screamed to run to Greenhollow right now, to challenge Varkel and damn the consequences. But I thought of my brothers sleeping upstairs, of Eric, who needed me to help him with his studies, of Soren, who still had nightmares, of all the years my father had bought with his blood. How long? I asked. As long as it takes. The next morning, I went to Tavin and asked him to train me to fight. He tried to refuse at first. I'm an old man, girl. I haven't held a sword in years. Then it's time you remembered how. Something in my voice, or maybe in my eyes, made him reconsider. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, but we do this properly. No shortcuts, no recklessness. You want to kill an alpha, you need to learn to think like a warrior, not just fight like one. Fine. And you tell your grandmother, no secrets. She already knows. He almost smiled at that. Of course she does. We started training the next day. Part 2, The Wolf Who Waited. Chapter 2. Learning to fight was nothing like I'd imagined. In the stories grandmother Usmara used to tell, warriors trained for a few weeks and emerged transformed, skilled and deadly and ready for glory. Reality was grinding and repetitive and painful in ways that had nothing to do with honor. Again, Tavin barked. I raised the practice sword, a weighted wooden blade that made my arms scream, and went through the sequence for the 100th time that morning. Advance, parry, riposte, retreat. Your footwork is sloppy. If your stance is wrong, it doesn't matter how fast you are. A strong push will knock you over. I'm trying. Try harder. I gritted my teeth and started over. My shoulders burned. Sweat poured down my back despite the cool autumn morning. My hands were blistered under the leather wraps Tavin had made me wear. But I didn't quit. I couldn't afford to quit. For 2 years, this was my life. Work during the day, laundry and mending, and whatever odd jobs I could find. Training in the early mornings and late evenings with Tavin. Studying with Usmara at night, learning herbs and poisons, anatomy and weaknesses, the old stories that held practical wisdom. Eric, now 8, had discovered the Velmora Library. He spent every free moment there, buried in books about history and law. Sometimes he'd come home excited, telling me about precedents in blood-right challenges or loopholes in pack law. Did you know, he said one evening, stirring the soup I'd made for dinner, that if a challenge is witnessed by representatives from at least 3 other packs, the result is binding across all territories. But if it's not properly witnessed, other alphas can contest it. That's actually useful, I said, surprised. He beamed at me. My little brother, who'd stopped smiling much after that night, was starting to come back to himself. Knowledge was his armor, I realized. The more he understood about the world and its rules, the safer he felt. Soren, on the other hand, was getting worse. At 7, he was already in fights weekly. He'd come home with black eyes and split lips, defiant and angry. Teachers complained about him. Village mothers whispered that he was troubled and kept their children away. One night, after I'd cleaned the blood from his knuckles yet again, I sat him down. "Why do you keep fighting?" "Because I'm not weak," he shot back. "I'm not going to be like..." He stopped, but I knew what he'd been about to say. Like Papa, like the father who let himself be killed. "Papa wasn't weak," I said quietly. "He died. He died protecting us. There's a difference." "Yeah, well, I'm never going to die protecting anyone. I'm going to be strong enough that no one can touch me." I looked at my baby brother, all 7 years of him, already so angry, already so scared, and I didn't know what to say. How could I tell him that strength without purpose was just violence, that he was becoming exactly what we were supposed to be fighting against? "Soren." "I don't want to talk about it." He pulled away from me and stalked upstairs to the loft. I looked at Usmara, helpless. "He'll find his way," she said, "just as you're finding yours." I hoped she was right. When I turned 17, my wolf finally emerged fully. It happened during a training session. Tavin and I were sparring, real combat now, not just drills. He came at me hard, sword flashing, and I was barely keeping up. My arms were exhausted. My reactions were slowing. He saw the opening and took it, blade sweeping toward my ribs. And something inside me snapped. The world went sharp and bright. Sounds became clearer, smells more distinct. I could hear Tavin's heartbeat, smell the leather of his gloves, see the individual beads of sweat on his forehead. I moved without thinking, faster than I'd ever moved before. Not quite a full shift, but enough that my nails lengthened into claws, my teeth sharpened, my eyes flashed gold. I caught his blade with my bare hand. The wood shattered. We both stood there, frozen, staring at the splintered remains of the practice sword. "Well," Tavin said finally, "that's new." My wolf retreated as suddenly as she'd appeared, leaving me gasping and dizzy. But I could still feel her, closer to the surface than ever before. Ready. "It's happening," I breathed. "She's finally ready." "Not yet," Tavin said, but he was smiling. "But soon." Then Raiden walked into my life, and everything changed again. It was a bright autumn day when Soren decided to prove his courage by hunting a boar. Never mind that he was only 9. Never mind that boars were dangerous even for experienced hunters. He'd heard some village boys talking about a massive one in the Whisperwood, and he was determined to kill it himself. I didn't find out until hours after he'd left. "He took a spear from the shed," Eric told me, worried. "I tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen." I didn't waste time being angry. I grabbed my own spear and ran for the forest. I tracked him by the sounds of chaos, crashing brush, a boy's shouts, and the enraged squealing of a very large, very angry boar. I burst into the clearing to find Soren backed against a tree, his spear broken, his arm bleeding. The boar was massive, easily 300 pounds of muscle and rage, its tusks stained red. It charged. I threw myself between them, spear raised, knowing even as I did it that I wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough. Something gray and massive hit the boar from the side, sending it tumbling. A wolf. No, a man who could become a wolf. He was shifting even as he fought, fluid and powerful, his teeth finding the boar's throat with practiced precision. The fight lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then the boar was dead, and the wolf was changing back. He was young, maybe 19, with dark hair and gray eyes and scars on his arms, and chest that spoke of violence survived. He was breathing hard, blood on his mouth, and he was beautiful in the way wild things are beautiful. "Is the boy hurt?" His voice was rough, like he didn't use it often. "I'm fine," Soren said, though he was definitely not fine. His arm was badly gashed. "You're an idiot," I told my brother, then turned to the stranger. Thank you, I thank you. He shrugged. I was tracking the boar anyway. It's been terrorizing farms for weeks. He paused. Your brother should see a healer. I know I will, I hesitated. I'm Aderyn. Raiden. Something passed between us in that moment, a flicker of recognition that I didn't understand. His eyes lingered on mine, and I felt my wolf stir, interested in a way she'd never been before. Then Soren groaned, and the moment broke. I need to get him home, I said. I'll help. He carried Soren easily, and I walked beside him back to the cottage. Grandmother Usmara took one look at the stranger and raised her eyebrows, but she said nothing. She just set to cleaning Soren's wound while Raiden and I stood awkwardly in the kitchen. You live in Velmora? I asked. For now, I move around. Running from something. His jaw tightened. Yes. I appreciated the honesty, even as it raised a dozen questions I didn't ask. Well, I said finally, thank you again for saving my idiot brother. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. He's brave, stupid but brave. That's the problem. Bravery usually is. He left after that, and I stood in the doorway watching him disappear into the trees. My wolf was packing inside me, agitated in a way I'd never felt. That one's dangerous, Usmara said from behind me. The good kind or the bad kind? Both, I think. I saw him again, 3 days later in the Velmora market. He was selling the boar meat, and people were giving him a wide berth, the kind of space you give predators, even ones in human skin. I watched him for a while, noting how carefully he moved, how he kept his back to walls, how his eyes constantly scanned the crowd. He was afraid, I realized, or at least wary. This was a man who expected violence. You can stop starring, he said without looking up. People will talk. I walked over to his stall, refusing to be embarrassed. How did you know I was here? Your scent, he finally looked at me. Wood smoke and rosemary, hard to miss. That's unsettling. Sorry. No, you're not. That almost smile again. No, I'm not. I found myself smiling back. So you're a hunter. Among other things. Such as. He studied me for a moment, clearly deciding how much to tell me. Protector, guide, occasionally a thief when necessary, whatever pays. Sounds lonely. It is, he said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity. But lonely is better than some alternatives. Like what? Like being where I came from. Which is? Somewhere I'm never going back to. I wanted to push, but something in his expression warned me off. Instead, I picked up a cut of meat from his stall. How much for this? You don't need to. You saved my brother. Let me buy dinner. He named a price. I paid it, and our hands brushed as I took the wrapped meat. The contact sent a jolt through me, electric and warm and confusing. From the way his eyes widened, he'd felt it too. Aderyn, he said slowly, like he was testing the name. Raiden, I echoed. We stood there like idiots, just looking at each other, until someone cleared their throat behind me, and I realized there was a line forming. I should go, I said. Wait, he hesitated. Would you? There's a tavern, the Silver Moon, tomorrow night. If you wanted to, I mean you don't have to, but... He was flustered. This dangerous, scarred wolfman was flustered, and it was adorable. What time? I asked. Sunset. I'll be there. I walked away before I could do something stupid, like kiss a stranger in the middle of the market. The Silver Moon was crowded and loud, and exactly the kind of place respectable village girls didn't go alone. I went anyway. Raiden was already there, sitting in a corner booth where he could see both the door and the windows. When he saw me, relief flooded his face. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? I hoped you would, but hopping and expecting are different things. I slid into the booth across from him. A barmaid brought ale without being asked, shooting Raiden a familiar smile that made something twist in my chest. Jealousy? That was ridiculous. I'd known him for 3 days. So, I said, tell me about yourself. What do you want to know? Everything. Start with why you're here and not wherever you came from. He took a long drink of his ale, buying time. Then, I'm from the Ashclaw Pack, north of here. In the mountains, my father was Alpha. Was. Still is, as far as I know, but I left 2 years ago. Why? His hands tightened on his mug. Because my father rules through fear, public punishments, executions for small offenses. He believes that's what keeps a pack strong, constant reminders of who has power. I disagreed. We fought about it for years. Finally, I left. Just like that. Just like that. He met my eyes. I'm a coward, Aderyn. I ran instead of fighting. Instead of trying to change things or protect the wolves being hurt, I just left. That doesn't make you a coward. Doesn't it? I thought about my own flight through the Blackthorn wilds. About the 6 years I'd spent hiding in Velmora while Varkle ruled my lands. Sometimes leaving is the only way to survive long enough to come back. Do you really believe that? I have to. Something in my voice made him lean forward. What are you running from? And because he'd been honest with me, because something about him made me want to be honest too, I told him. Not everything, not yet, but enough. About Green Hello and my parents and the bloodright and the revenge I'd been planning for years. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. You're going to get yourself killed, he said finally. Probably. Varkle the Iron Alpha, I've heard stories, he's formidable. I know. And you're planning to challenge him anyway. Yes. When? When I'm ready. He studied me, really looked at me, like he was trying to see past skin and bone into whatever made me me. You're not doing this alone, he said finally. I have to. You don't, I'll help you. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. No, he agreed, but I know what it's like to want justice, and I know what it's like to run from a place you should have fought for. Maybe helping you is how I start making up for that. I should have said no, should have told him this was my fight, my burden, my revenge. But the truth was, I was tired of being alone, tired of carrying this weight by myself. Okay, I said. Okay, yes. His smile, when it came, transformed his whole face. Good, when do we start? We started the next morning. Raiden was a better fighter than Tavin, younger, faster, with the kind of skills that came from surviving real combat, not just teaching it. He was brutal in training, showing me no mercy, pushing me until I wanted to quit. Again, he'd say, circling me with his practice blade. I need a break. Varkle won't give you breaks, again. I hated him in those moments, hated the way he drove me, relentless and unforgiving, but I also got better, faster, stronger. We trained in the forest, away from prying eyes. Sometimes we fought in human form. Sometimes we shifted partially, learning to use claws and teeth and speed together. My wolf loved it, loved the challenge, loved having someone who could match her. And slowly, as the weeks turned into months, something else grew between us. It started small, a smile when I finally landed a hit, his hand on my shoulder when I was frustrated, the way he always checked that I'd eaten enough, that I wasn't pushing myself too hard. You need to rest, he said one evening after I'd pushed through 3 straight hours of sparring. I'm fine. You're exhausted. I said I'm fine. He caught my wrist, gentle but firm, stopping me from going back into fighting stance. Aderyn, rest, please. The please did it. I lowered my sword and let him guide me to sit against a tree. He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. Tell me about them, he said quietly. Your parents. So I did. I told him about my father's laugh and my mother's singing. About the way my father would lift me onto his shoulders so I could see over the wheat fields. About my mother's lavender soap and the way she smelled like summer. I didn't realize I was crying until Raiden's thumb brushed away a tear. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry you lost them. Everyone loses someone eventually. That doesn't make it hurt less. No, it didn't. We sat there in comfortable silence until the sun started to set. Then Ryden stood and offered me his hand. Come on, I'll walk you home. He walked me home every night after that. Chapter 3. I fell in love with him the way the seasons change, gradual and then all at once. It happened in small moments. The way he'd bring me food when I forgot to eat, too focused on training. The way he listened when I talked about my brothers, offering advice without judgment. The way he looked at me sometimes, like I was something precious he was afraid to touch. We never talked about what was growing between us. We were both too careful, too scarred by our pasts to risk numbing it. But it was there. One night, 6 months after we'd met, we were sitting by a stream after training. The summer air was thick and warm, and I dunked my head in the water to cool off. When I came up, Ryden was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. What? I asked, suddenly self-conscious. You're beautiful, he said, like the words surprised him as much as they surprised me. I felt my face heat. I'm a mess. I'm covered in sweat and bruises and... You're beautiful, he repeated, and this time there was no hesitation in his voice. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, he brushed a wet strand of hair from my face, his fingers lingering against my cheek. Aderyn, he said softly, Whatever he was going to say was interrupted by someone crashing through the brush. Addie. Eric burst into the clearing, his face pale and frightened. You need to come home, now. I was on my feet instantly. What's wrong? It's Soren. There was a fight. He's hurt bad. Ryden and I ran. Soren had been jumped by a group of older boys, 5 of them, all at least 14. They'd beaten him bloody and left him in an alley. A shopkeeper had found him and brought him to our cottage. He was conscious when we got there, but barely. His face was swollen, one eye completely shut. His ribs were bruised, possibly broken. Blood crusted his split lip. I'm fine, he slurred when he saw me. You should see them. You're not fine, you stubborn idiot. I turned to Usmara. How bad? Bruised ribs, possible concussion. He'll heal, but he needs rest. I don't need rest, Soren protested, trying to sit up. I need to fuck. Language, I said automatically. I'm fine. You're not fine. My voice came out sharper than I intended, all my fear transmuting into anger. You're 9 years old, Soren, 9, and you keep picking fights you can't win. I can win. I just need to get stronger. Strength isn't going to save you if you're outnumbered 5-1. Then I'll fight smarter. Or you could stop fighting. I was shouting now, all the frustration of the past years pouring out. You could stop trying to prove whatever it is you think you need to prove and just stop. Why? He glared at me with his one good eye. So I can end up like Papa, dead because I was too weak to fight back. The words hung in the air like a curse. Soren, Usmara said gently, that's not. It's true though, isn't it? He looked between us, defiant despite his injuries. Papa died because he wouldn't fight, because he was weak. Well, I'm not going to be weak. I'm not going to let anyone kill me without fighting back. Your father wasn't weak, I said, but my voice had lost its anger. Now I just sounded tired. He was protecting us. By dying. By giving us a chance. A chance at what? Hiding in Velmora forever, pretending we're not wolves, pretending we don't have a home that was stolen from us. I opened my mouth, then closed it, because he was right. We were hiding. And every day we stayed here was another day Varkle ruled our lands unchallenged. I'm working on it, I said finally. When are we going back? When are you going to make him pay for what he did? When I'm ready. When will that be? His voice cracked. I'm tired of waiting, Addie. I'm tired of being the kid whose parents were murdered. I'm tired of being afraid. I just want to go home. I know. I knelt beside him, taking his uninjured hand in mine. I know, Soren, I promise you we will go home, but not yet. Not until I can protect you when we do. I don't need you to protect me. I know, but I need to be able to. Please, just give me a little more time. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. Fine, but not forever. Not forever, I agreed. After Usmara finished bandaging him and he'd fallen into an exhausted sleep, I went outside. Ryden was sitting on the porch steps, waiting. He's going to be all right, I said, sitting beside him. I know, he's tough. Too tough. He reminds me of my brother, Kadam, always trying to prove himself, always angry. Ryden was quiet for a moment. I failed him, when I left. I told myself I was saving myself, but really I was abandoning him to my father's influence. By now, he's probably just as cruel. You can't know that. Can't I? He looked at me. You know what they say about families like mine. Violence breeds violence. My father was brutal, so his sons will be brutal. It's in the blood. I don't believe that. Why not? Because you're not cruel, and you had the same father. I ran away. You made a choice to be different. That takes more strength than people think. He smiled, sad and small. I hope you're right. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the forest. He's not wrong, Ryden said finally. Your brother you can't hide forever. I know. So, when are you going to stop training and start planning? I looked at him. Are you saying I'm ready? I'm saying you're as ready as you're ever going to be. You're fast, you're smart, and you're stubborn enough to keep fighting even when you should quit. But Varkle isn't going to get weaker while you wait, and your brothers aren't going to stay patient forever. He was right. I'd been using training as an excuse to delay the inevitable. But the truth was, I was afraid. Not of Varkle, though I should be, but of what would happen if I failed, if I died and left my brothers orphaned twice over. I don't know if I can beat him, I admitted. Probably not in a straight fight, not yet, but that's why you don't fight straight. You fight smart. You use allies, you make him fight on your terms, not his. How? That's what we need to figure out. He stood and offered me his hand. But not tonight. Tonight, you sit with your brother and make sure he knows he's not alone. Tomorrow, we start planning. I took his hand and let him pull me up, but instead of letting go, I held on. Ryden. Yeah. Thank you for staying, for helping, for everything. He pulled me into a hug, the first time he'd held me like this. He was warm and solid and smelled like pine and leather. My wolf purred, content in a way she'd never been before. I told you, he said into my hair. You're not doing this alone. I held on a little longer than I should have. Then I went inside to sit with Soren, while Ryden disappeared into the forest like the ghost he was. Chapter 4. My 18th birthday came and went with little fanfare. Usmara made cake. Eric gave me a book on military strategy he'd bought with his own carefully saved coins. Soren, still healing from his beating, made me a leather knife sheath with my initials burned into it. Ryden's gift was simpler and somehow more precious. A full day off from training. You're relentless, he said when I protested. One day won't hurt, let yourself breathe. So we spent the day by the river, just talking. He told me about the Ashclaw pack, about growing up watching his father rule through fear. I told him about the Elden Fields, about summers spent running through wheat tall enough to hide in. I want to see it, he said. When you take it back, I want to see this place that means so much to you. You will, I promised. When this is over, I'll show you everything. Will there be sheep? I laughed. So many sheep. Good, I like sheep. You're ridiculous. Maybe, but I made you laugh. He had. For the first time in what felt like years, I felt light. Young. Like maybe there was more to life than revenge and duty. That night, everything changed. We were walking back to the cottage when the rogue wolves attacked. There were 3 of them, lone wolves without packs, desperate and dangerous. They came out of nowhere, shifting mid-leap, teeth and claws flashing. Ryden reacted instantly, shifting and throwing himself between me and the largest wolf. They collided in a tangle of fur and violence. The second wolf came for me. I tried to shift, felt my wolf rising, but not fast enough. Claws raked across my ribs, deep and burning. I went down hard. Pain exploded through me, white and absolute. I could hear Ryden fighting, hear him snarling, but it sounded distant. The wolf above me was going for my throat. And then my wolf erupted. Not a partial shift this time. Full transformation, instant and complete. 1 second I was human and dying. The next I was wolf and fury incarnate. I'd never fully shifted before. Didn't know what to expect, but my wolf knew exactly what to do. We were smaller than the rogue, but faster. We dodged his attack and went for his legs, hamstringing him. When he fell, we went for his throat. It was over in seconds. I shifted back, gasping, my hands covered in blood. The dead wolf lay beside me. The other two were fleeing into the forest, Ryden chasing them off. Then he was beside me, human again, his hands on my face. Aderyn, look at me. I looked. His eyes were wild, more gold than gray. His hands were shaking. You're bleeding, he said. I'm fine. I was somehow. The wounds were already closing, healing with the preternatural speed of our kind. Ryden, I fully shifted. I know, I felt it. His hands moved to my ribs, checking the wounds even as they knitted themselves closed. I felt you get hurt and I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. All I could feel was you in pain and I just... He stopped, seeming to realize what he was saying, what it meant. We stared at each other. The bond, I whispered. I think so. The mate bond, the thing that legends were made of. The connection that tied two wolves together so completely that they could feel each other's pain, each other's emotions. How long? I asked. I don't know, months maybe. I started noticing it after. He trailed off, but I knew what he meant. After we'd gotten close. After we'd started training together, talking together, spending every possible moment together. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wasn't sure, and because, he laughed shakily, because I didn't want to scare you off. You have enough to deal with without adding fated mate to the list. Fated mate, I repeated, testing the words. They should have terrified me. Instead, they felt right. We don't have to do anything about it, Ryden said quickly. The bond can stay dormant. We can ignore it. I won't. I would never pressure you. I kissed him. I don't know who was more surprised, him or me. But suddenly I was pressing my lips to his, my blood-covered hands tangling in his hair, and he was kissing me back like I was air and he'd been drowning. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. Or we could not ignore it, Ryden said. Or we could not ignore it, I agreed. We kissed again, slower this time. Thorough. His hands were gentle on my face, my waist, my hips. My wolf was purring, content and possessive and certain. Mine, she seemed to say, ours. When we finally pulled apart, I was smiling. Actually, genuinely smiling. We should go, Ryden said, before more rogues show up, and you need to rest. You lost blood and shifting for the first time takes energy. I don't feel tired. You will. He was right. By the time we got back to the cottage, exhaustion was crashing over me in waves. Usmara took one look at my bloody clothes and torn shirt and ushered me inside, demanding to know what happened. Rogues, Ryden explained while I sat at the table, suddenly too tired to stand. 3 of them, Aderyn killed 1. You fully shifted. Usmara's hands were already checking me for injuries, even though the wounds had healed. Yes. And your wolf. They're fully there now, I can feel her. Usmara and Ryden exchanged a look that I was too exhausted to interpret. What? I asked. The bond awakened her, Usmara said simply. You needed to protect your mate, so your wolf gave you the strength to do it. How did you? Child, I've been watching you 2 dance around each other for months. It was only a matter of time. She smiled, warm and knowing. Your mother would be happy. She always said you'd find someone who matched your fire. My eyes stung. I blinked hard. Get some rest, Usmara said gently. Tomorrow is soon enough to figure out what comes next. But as I climbed the ladder to the loft, passing my sleeping brothers, I already knew what came next. It was time to go home. The next few days were a blur of activity. Ryden and I spent every moment together, solidifying the bond. It wasn't just physical, though there was plenty of that too. Stolen kisses in the forest, his hands learning the shape of me, mine learning the scars that mapped his past. But it was more than desire. It was understanding. It was the way I could feel his presence even when he wasn't nearby, a warm constant in the back of my mind. The way he knew when I was anxious before I said anything. The way we moved together when we fought, perfectly synchronized. The bond makes you stronger, Asmara explained one evening. Together, you're more than the sum of your parts, but it also makes you vulnerable if he's hurt. You'll feel it if something happens to him. I know, I said. I'll feel it like it's happening to me. And vice versa, so you protect each other or you lose everything. I looked at Ryden, who was playing some kind of hand game with Soren that involved a lot of laughing. He'd won my brothers over completely. Eric brought him books to discuss. Soren treated him like the big brother he'd never had. I'll protect him, I promised. Good, because he'll need it. I didn't understand what she meant until 3 days later, when everything fell apart. The messenger arrived at dawn. He was one of Ryden's old pack, a young wolf who looked like he'd ridden hard through the night. He found us in the forest during morning training. Ryden, the boy gasped, you need to come home now. Ryden went very still. What happened? Your father, he's dead. I felt the shock ripple through Ryden, echoing in my own chest through the bond. How? Your brother, Kadam, killed him, challenged him for Alpha and won. The boy's voice was shaking. But Kadam's worse, Ryden, so much worse. He's executing anyone who is loyal to your father. There's going to be a civil war if someone doesn't stop him. Let them fight it out, Ryden said, but his voice was hollow. It's not my problem anymore. The pack is dying. Families are fleeing. Children are being conscripted into Kadam's guard. Please, you're the eldest. You're the rightful heir, if you come back. I can't. The boy looked at him desperately, then at me. Please, talk to him. Our pack is falling apart. After he left, Ryden stood silent for a long time. You have to go, I said finally. No. Ryden. I said no. He turned to me and his eyes were anguished. I just found you. I can't leave now, not when you need me. Your people need you more. I don't care about them. Yes, you do. I took his hands in mine. You care so much it's been eating you alive since you left. You told me once that you ran instead of fighting. Here's your chance to stop running. Aderyn, if I go back, I don't know how long it'll take. Months, maybe, years. And if Kadam decides to fight me for real, then you win. You don't know that. I know you. You're strong and smart and you actually care about your pack. That makes you a better alpha than he'll ever be. He pulled me close, pressing his forehead to mine. Through the bond, I could feel his turmoil, duty warring with desire, responsibility clashing with the desperate need to stay. I don't want to leave you, he whispered. I know, but you have to. Come with me. I can't, my brothers. Bring them, all of you. Come to the Ashclaw pack. We'll deal with Kadam together and then. And then what? We abandon Greenhollow. Let Varkle win. He pulled back, his jaw tight. So what, we just separate? You go after Varkle alone while I fix my broken pack. Not alone. I have allies, I have a plan. I just need time to. Time for one of us to die without the other knowing. Time for the bond to drive us both insane from separation. His hands tightened on my arms. Do you know what happens to bonded mates who are separated for too long? It's physical pain, Aderyn, constant, gnawing pain. I can handle pain. Can you? He looked at me, really looked at me. Because I don't think I can, not when it comes to you. You did it before. You left your pack, traveled for 2 years. You survived. I wasn't bonded then. I didn't know what I was missing. His voice cracked. Now I do, and the thought of leaving you is. I kissed him to shut him up, pouring everything I felt into it. Love and fear and determination and goodbye. When we broke apart, we were both crying. Save your people, I told him. I'll save mine, and then we'll meet again, I promise. When? When we're both done, when we're both free. That could be years. Then we wait years. Aderyn, do you trust me? He closed his eyes, more than anyone. Then trust me now. Trust that I'll survive. Trust that I'll come back to you. Trust that this bond is strong enough to survive distance. Is it? It has to be. We had 3 more days together before he left. 3 days of memorizing each other, of binding ourselves together in every way that mattered. On the last night, we completed the bond. The old way, the permanent way. We marked each other, biting deep enough to scar, to leave a permanent claim visible to every wolf who looked at us. Mine, Ryden said, his teeth at my throat. Yours, I agreed, and you're mine. Always. When the sun rose, we stood at the edge of the forest. Ryden had a horse packed for travel. The messenger boy was waiting. I'll write, Ryden said. Coded letters so you know I'm alive. I'll write back. And when this is over, we build something new, together. He kissed me one last time, long and desperate and full of promises. Then he rode away, and I stood there watching until he disappeared completely. Through the bond, I could still feel him, a warm presence growing more distant but never quite gone. I touched the mark he'd left on my shoulder and smiled through my tears. Come back to me, I whispered. Somewhere miles away, I felt him answer, always. Part 3, The Daughter of the Fields. Chapter 5. The first month after Ryden left was the hardest. The bond pulled constantly, an ache in my chest that never quite eased. Some days it was bearable, a dull throb that I could ignore while I trained or worked. Other days it was sharp and breathtaking, leaving me gasping. Usmara made me teas that helped. Chamomile and moonflower, she said. It won't stop the pain, but it'll take the edge off. How long until it gets better? It doesn't. You just learn to live with it. That was a comfort. The letters helped too. Ryden wrote every week short, coded messages that told me he was alive and fighting. He'd challenged Kadam and won, but taking control of a fractured pack was like trying to hold water in cupped hands. Every day brought new problems, new conflicts, new threats. I miss you, every letter ended. Stay safe. I wrote back with my own updates. About my training, about my slowly forming plans, about my brothers, about how much I missed him too. But I didn't write about what I was really doing. About the secret trips I was making to Greenhollow, disguised as a traveling merchant. About the network of rebels I was building, one whispered conversation at a time. I didn't write about how I was becoming someone else, someone harder, someone who could do what needed to be done. My first trip back to Greenhollow, I barely recognized it. The fields that had once been gold with wheat were brown and dead. The houses that had been bright with paint were faded and worn. The people who had been my neighbors walked with their heads down, jumping at shadows. And over it all, the stench of fear. I wore a hood and kept my head down, just another traveler passing through. But I saw everything. The guards on every corner, Varkel's Iron Fang insignia on their chests. The public stocks where 2 men sat, bruised and bleeding, with signs around their necks. Thieves. Their crime, I learned from whispered gossip, was keeping back grain to feed their families instead of paying Varkel's tithe. I saw the children conscripted into service, some as young as 8. I saw the wells that ran bitter. I saw the livestock that was sick and dying. And I saw the land itself, suffering under a rule it had never accepted. It made me physically ill. This was my home, my father's legacy, and it was dying because I'd been too afraid, too weak, too slow to act. Are you all right, miss? I looked up to find an old woman watching me. Her face was lined with age and grief, but her eyes were sharp. I'm fine, I said, just shocked. I haven't been here in years. It's changed so much. It has. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. Were you here before the Iron Alpha came? I hesitated, then nodded. Her eyes studied my face. You have the look of someone, can't quite place it, but there's something familiar. I should go, I said quickly. But she caught my arm with surprising strength. Wait, your eyes. Gold brown like autumn wheat, I know those eyes. My heart was hammering. I don't know what you. You're Eldrick's girl. It wasn't a question. The eldest, Aderyn. Keep your voice down, I hissed. Does he know you're here? Varkle. No, and it needs to stay that way. She smiled then, fierce and sudden. You came back. We hoped you would. Some of us never stopped hopping. Who's we? The ones who remember. The ones who loved your father. The ones who know the land is dying because it rejects the wolf who took it by murder. She squeezed my arm. How can we help? And just like that, the rebellion began. Her name was Mary's, and she was exactly what I needed. A lifetime Greenhollow resident, respected in the community, with connections to every household in the village. We met in secret over the following weeks. Just her at first, then others she trusted. Farmers and craftsmen and mothers who'd lost children to Varkle's conscriptions. Old soldiers who'd served my grandfather. Young people hungry for change. What's your plan? Mary's asked during our third meeting. Bloodright challenge, I said. Formal combat properly witnessed. If I win, the land is mine by law and blood. If I lose. You won't lose. You don't know that. I know the land recognizes you. I've seen it. The wheat grows where you walk. The water runs clear near you. You're the rightful heir. She paused. But you'll need more than the land's blessing to beat Varkle. You'll need strategy. That's where you come in. Over the next year, we built something extraordinary. A network of resistance fighters, all operating in secret. Some gathered intelligence on Varkle's guard rotations. Others stockpiled weapons and supplies. The blacksmith made weapons hidden in false bottom crates. The miller spread word to other villages, building support. Eric, now 12, became my strategist. He'd studied every text on military tactics he could find, and his mind worked in ways mine didn't, seeing patterns, anticipating moves, planning 3 steps ahead. Varkle's weakness is his paranoia, Eric said one night, surrounded by maps and notes. He trusts no one. That means his guard is strong but isolated. They don't work together well because they're too busy watching each other. How does that help us? We exploit it, make him think there are traitors in his ranks, turn his paranoia into a weapon. By the time you challenge him, he'll be so busy looking over his shoulder he won't see you coming. Soren, now 11, became my soldier. The boy who'd been all reckless rage had focused that energy into something purposeful. He was fast and fearless and absolutely loyal. I want to fight beside you, he said. When you go back, I want to be there. You will be, I promise. I was 19 when Tavin died. He'd gone to Greenhollow on a supply run, something he'd done dozens of times before. But this time, someone recognized him. Someone remembered that he'd been my father's man. Varkle's guards took him, tortured him for information about the resistance, about me, about our plans. Tavin told them nothing. He died in Greenhollow's public square, and they left his body on display as a warning. This is what happens to traitors. This is what happens to those who oppose the Iron Alpha. Mary's got word to me 2 days later. By then, his body was gone, buried in an unmarked grave. I knelt in the forest where he'd first taught me to hold a sword, and I cried for the man who'd saved us, who'd given us a chance, who'd died protecting us one final time. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry I wasn't faster, wasn't stronger, wasn't ready. But I would be, soon. The letters from Ryden became less frequent as the years passed. Not because he loved me less, but because he had less time. The Ashclaw pack was slowly stabilizing, but it took everything he had. I dream about you every night, one letter said. I feel you through the bond, but it's not enough. I need to see you, touch you, hold you. Soon, I wrote back, I promise, soon. But soon kept stretching further away. Every time I thought I was ready, something came up. Another delay, another complication, another reason to wait. I was 20 when I finally admitted the truth to myself. I was afraid. Not of Varkle, not of dying, but of what would happen if I failed. If I challenged him and lost and left my brothers orphaned again. If I died and left Ryden to feel it through the bond. You're stalling, Usmara said one evening. I'm being careful. You're being afraid. There's a difference. I have a right to be afraid. Of course you do, but fear isn't keeping you alive, child. It's keeping you trapped. She set down her sewing and looked at me. Your father bought you time. Ryden sacrificed years to give you support. Tavin died to protect your identity. At what point does honoring their sacrifice become wasting their sacrifice? Her words cut deep because they were true. What if I'm not strong enough? I whispered. Then you die, but at least you'll die trying. At least you'll die fighting for something instead of hiding from it. Grandmother. I'm dying, Aderyn. The words stopped me cold. What? I'm 74 years old. I'm tired, and I would very much like to die in the home I was born in, not in this borrowed cottage. She smiled. Take me home, child. Let me see Greenhollow one more time before I go. You're not dying. We're all dying. I'm just doing it faster. She reached over and took my hand. I've taught you everything I can. You're as ready as you'll ever be. The only question is whether you'll have the courage to step forward. That night, I wrote to Ryden. It's time. I'm going home. I'm challenging Varkle. I don't know when you'll get this, but I needed you to know. I love you. I'll love you no matter what happens, but I can't wait anymore. Come back to me when you can. I'll be waiting in the Elden Fields. Then I went to find my brothers. We're going home, I told them. Soren grinned, fierce and hungry. Finally. Eric just nodded, like he'd been expecting this. I'll need to send letters. We'll need witnesses for the challenge and allies positioned. I know, do it. Addie, Soren's voice was suddenly young again. What if you lose? I looked at my baby brother, not so much a baby anymore at 13, but still my responsibility. Then you run, you and Eric. You run as far and as fast as you can and you survive. Promise me. I'm not leaving you. Promise me, Soren. He looked mutinous, but finally nodded. I promise. Good. I pulled them both into a hug. Now let's go take back what's ours. Part 4, The Return. Chapter 6. We moved the rebellion into position over the course of 2 months. Eric's strategic mind proved invaluable. He orchestrated everything like a master puppeteer, supply lines established, weapons distributed, allies positioned. He sent formal challenges to every pack within 3 territories, invoking ancient bloodright law that required witnesses. If 3 or more alphas witness the challenge, the result is binding across all territories, he explained. Varkle can't refuse without looking weak, and other alphas can't contest the result. Will they come? Oh, they'll come. Varkle has made a lot of enemies. They're curious to see if someone can finally beat him. Maris and the Greenhollow resistance were ready too. They'd been preparing for years, and now they were coiled like springs, waiting for the signal. The plan was simple. I would issue the formal challenge. While Varkle was forced to accept or lose face, the rebellion would rise from within. Ryden's pack, if he got my message in time, would attack from the forest. We'd squeeze Varkle from all sides. And in the center of it all, I would face him in single combat. You know he'll try to kill you even if he's losing, Eric said. The rules of Bloodright Challenge prohibit interference, but that doesn't mean he'll fight fair. I don't need fair, I just need to win. The words sounded braver than I felt. 3 days before we were set to move, disaster struck. Varkle discovered the rebellion. A spy we never learned who revealed everything to him. The weapons caches, the supply lines, the names of key rebels. In one night, Varkle's guards swept through Greenhollow and arrested 24 people, including Maris. They were executed in the public square at dawn. No trial, no mercy, just swift, brutal violence meant to send a message. This is what happens to those who defy the Iron Alpha. I felt it through my network, the shock, the grief, the terror. Rebels went aground. Plans fell apart. Years of careful work destroyed in a single night. And I was too far away to stop it. We need to move now, Soren said. Before he finds everyone else, before. We can't, Eric interrupted. We're not ready. We don't have the weapons in place. We don't have the witnesses confirmed. Then people will die while we wait. People will die anyway. Eric was shouting now, his usual calm shattered. People always die in war, Soren. That's what this is, a war. And wars need strategy, not just passion. They looked at me, waiting for me to decide. I thought about Mari's, about her fierce loyalty and her hope, about how she died believing I would save them. I thought about Tavin, about my parents, about every person who'd sacrificed so I could have this chance. We move in 2 days, I said. With or without full preparation, we can't wait any longer. Addie. 2 days, Eric. Use the time we have, but we're going. He nodded, already thinking, already planning. The night before we left, Usmara called me to her bedside. She'd been getting weaker all year. But seeing her now, frail and faded, made my chest tight. This was the woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me everything, who'd kept us alive when we had nothing. Sit, child, she said. I sat, taking her cold hand in mine. I won't make it to Greenhollow, she said simply. Don't say that. It's all right, I've made my peace, she smiled, but I have something for you first. She pulled a wrapped bundle from under her pillow and handed it to me. When I unwrapped it, I found a blade, old and beautifully made, with a wolf carved into the hilt. Your father's, Usmara said. He carried it every day, even though he hoped never to use it. His father gave it to him and his father before that. It's been in our family for 10 generations. I could barely see through my tears. Grandmother. Use it well, use it wisely. And remember, strength without mercy is just cruelty. But mercy without strength is weakness. You need both. I'll remember. Good, she squeezed my hand weakly. One more thing. When you win, and you will win, child, I know it, don't become him. Don't let revenge turn you into the thing you're fighting against. I won't. Promise me you'll build something better. I promise. She closed her eyes, satisfied. Good, now go, you have a kingdom to reclaim. I kissed her forehead and left. She died peacefully in her sleep that night, a smile on her face. We buried her under the oak tree, where my mother used to sing. She'll like it here, Eric said softly. Yeah, I agreed, my voice rough. She will. Then we turned toward Greenhollow and started walking. The army that met us at the edge of the Elden Fields was small but fierce. 200 rebels from Greenhollow and surrounding villages. Some barely trained, others veterans of old wars, all of them tired of living under Varkel's rule. I stood before them in my father's armor, adjusted to fit me but still clearly his. My father's blade at my hip, my wolf's eyes flashing gold in the pre-dawn light. I won't lie to you, I said, my voice carrying across the assembled crowd. Some of you will die today, maybe all of us will. Varkel is strong and cruel and experienced. Silence, grim faces. But he's also afraid. He's afraid of you, afraid of me, afraid of what we represent, that his power isn't absolute, that his violence isn't the only law. I drew my blade, holding it high. My father died on this land 10 years ago. He died protecting his children, protecting his people, protecting the idea that strength should serve, not dominate. Today, we honor that idea. Today, we take back what's ours, not through murder or conquest, but through justice, through the blood-right law that says this land belongs to those it chooses. I paused, making eye contact with as many faces as I could. Today, we go home. The roar that answered me was deafening. We attacked at dawn. The plan was chaos by design, multiple fronts, constant motion, never letting Varkel's forces organize. Eric's strategy, executed by Soren's courage and the rebellion's fury. I led the main force straight through the center of Greenhollow, toward the Elden Fields where my father had died. Where Varkel sat in the farmhouse he'd stolen, surrounded by his Iron Fang guard. We met resistance immediately. Varkel's guards were well-trained and vicious, and they didn't hesitate to kill. But neither did we. I shifted mid-run, my wolf form flowing out like I'd been doing it all my life. Around me, other wolves did the same, a pack of dozens, moving as one. The battle was brutal. Claws and teeth and blood, screams and howls and the smell of death. But we pushed forward. Somewhere in the chaos, I felt it, a warmth through the bond growing stronger. Close, getting closer. Raiden. I wanted to find him, but I couldn't. I had a different target. I found Varkle in the center of the Elden Fields, exactly where I'd known he'd be. He was massive, bigger than I remembered, though maybe I'd just been small. 7 feet of muscle and violence, with eyes that gleamed yellow and teeth that could tear through bone. His Iron Fang guard ringed him, but when I approached, he waved them back. "Let her come," he said. His voice was like grinding stone, exactly as I remembered. "I've been waiting for this." I shifted back to human form, standing before him in my father's armor, my blade steady in my hand. "Varkle of the Iron Fang Pack," I said, my voice clear and strong. "I am Aderyn, daughter of Eldrick, heir of the Elden Fields. I challenge you for blood right claim to this land. Do you accept?" Around us, the fighting had stopped. Everyone, rebels and guards alike, had turned to watch. In the distance, I could see other wolves arriving. Alpha witnesses, summoned by Eric's letters. 3, 4, 5 of them sitting at the edges of the field to observe. Varkle smiled, showing too many teeth. "I accept." And then he attacked. Part 5, Blood and Victory. Chapter 7. Varkle moved like lightning for something so large. 1 second he was standing 10 feet away. The next, his claws were slashing toward my throat. I dodged on pure instinct, my father's blade coming up to deflect the blow. The impact sent vibrations up my arms, nearly knocking the sword from my grip. "Weak," Varkle snarled, "just like your father." He attacked again, a flurry of strikes meant to overwhelm me. Claws and teeth and pure savage strength. I gave ground, deflecting what I could, dodging what I couldn't. My training with Raiden and Tavin kicked in. Don't meet strength with strength. Use speed. Use intelligence. Survive until you see an opening. But Varkle wasn't giving me openings. He was relentless, driving me back across the field. Blood ran down my arm where his claws had caught me. My breath was coming hard. The witnesses watched in silence. My rebels watched in horror. Varkle's guards watched with satisfied grins. I was losing. "This is boring," Varkle said, circling me like a predator. "I expected more from Eldrick's daughter. He at least fought before he died. You're just running." "My father bought time for his children," I said, adjusting my grip on the blade. "He died with purpose. You'll just die." I attacked then, a faint high that turned into a low strike, blade aimed for his legs. He caught my wrist mid-swing. His grip was iron, crushing. He twisted and I felt bones grind together. My fingers spasmed. The blade fell. "No," Varkle said, kicking the sword away. "No weapons. If you want this land, you fight for it like a wolf." He threw me across the field. I hit the ground hard, rolled, and came up spitting blood. Fine, he wanted a wolf fight. He'd get one. I shifted. My wolf burst out, golden and furious and smaller than Varkle's but faster. So much faster. We met in the center of the field, with a crash that shook the ground. Teeth and claws, fur and blood. 2 wolves fighting for land, for pride, for survival. Varkle was stronger, but I was quicker. When he lunged, I dodged. When he struck, I was already gone. I darted in, teeth finding purchase on his shoulder, tearing flesh. Darted out before he could retaliate. "Coward," he snarled in the half-human voice wolves could use. "Stand and fight." "No," I said, circling him. "I'll fight smart, like my father taught me." That made him angry. Good. Angry wolves made mistakes. He charged all power, no finesse. I waited until the last second, then dropped low and rolled under him. My claws raked his belly as I passed, opening long wounds. Not fatal, not yet, but bleeding him, wearing him down. He roared and spun, but I was already behind him. Teeth found the back of his leg, hamstringing him. He stumbled but didn't fall. "The land rejects you," I said, circling. "Can't you feel it? The ground beneath your feet, the air you breathe, it knows you don't belong here. The land is dirt, he spat. It serves whoever is strong enough to take it. That's where you're wrong. As if in answer, something shifted beneath us. The Elden Fields, my father's land, my bloodland, responded to my presence. Roots stirred. The ground became uneven under Varkel's feet, but steady under mine. He noticed. His eyes widened with something that might have been fear. Impossible. My father made a promise to this land, I said. To tend it, to love it, to pass it to children who would do the same. That's why it's dying under you. Not because you're not strong enough, but because you don't understand what strength really is. I attacked then while he was off balance. Not a killing blow, not yet, but teeth in his shoulder bearing him down, claws raking his flanks. He fought back, desperate now, caught my throat in his jaws and shook. Pain exploded through me. I felt ribs crack, felt blood pour hot down my neck. Through the bond, I felt Ryden's panic. He was close, so close, could feel my pain. And then I felt his strength pouring into me. Our bond, forged in love and tested by distance, now sustaining me when I needed it most. Get up. Ryden's presence seemed to say, get up and fight. I'm here, I'm with you. I twisted in Varkel's grip, ignoring the agony, and sank my teeth into his throat. Not deep enough to kill, just deep enough to terrify. He released me, stumbling back. Blood poured from his neck, his blood and mine, mixing on the soil of the Elden Fields. We circled each other, both wounded, both exhausted. Yield, I said. Yield and I'll let you live. Leave these lands and never return. He laughed, a wet, bloody sound. You think I fear death. You think I fear you. No, but you should fear dying for nothing. Dying alone. Dying unmourned and unremembered. I am the Iron Alpha. I will be remembered as the strongest. You'll be remembered as the tyrant who tried to steal what wasn't his, who ruled through fear and died because of it. Is that the legacy you want? For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Not quite doubt, but hesitation. Then it was gone. I want to be feared, he said, and you will fear me before the end. He attacked one final time. Everything he had left, all his strength and rage and violence poured into one desperate assault. But I was ready. I met him head on, and this time I didn't dodge. This time I matched his strength with my own, my wolf's power amplified by the bond, by the land's blessing, by 10 years of patient fury finally unleashed. We grappled, teeth snapping, claws tearing, blood and fur and primal violence. And then I saw it, the opening I'd been waiting for. His guard dropped for just a second, exhaustion and blood loss making him sloppy. I took it. My teeth found his throat again, and this time I didn't let go. I bore down, through muscle and sinew, tasting copper and salt and victory. Varkel thrashed, trying to throw me off. But I held on, my jaws locked, my will unbreakable. For my father, for my mother, for Tavin and Maurice and everyone who died because you couldn't understand that power without compassion is just tyranny. He weakened, slowed, his struggles became feeble. And then he stopped. I held on for another moment, making sure. Then I released him and stepped back. Varkel the Iron Alpha lay dead in the Elden Fields, his blood soaking into the soil he'd tried to claim. I shifted back to human form, naked and bleeding and shaking with exhaustion. Around me, the field was silent. Then someone started cheering. One voice, then 10, then 100. My rebels screaming their victory, wolves howling their approval. But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at the edge of the forest, where a familiar gray wolf stood watching. Ryden. He shifted and ran toward me, and I ran toward him, and we met in the middle of the field and collapsed into each other. You're hurt, he said, hands running over my wounds. You're bleeding. I'm fine, my voice broke. I won. I know, I felt it. He pulled me closer, mindless of the blood. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. I rode as fast as I could when I got your letter, but you're here now. That's what matters. I looked past him and saw them, 200 wolves from the Ashclaw pack, arranged at the forest's edge. Ryden's wolves, our allies. You brought your whole pack, I said. I brought our pack, he corrected. Ashclaw is stable now, united under fair rule, and I told them, if my mate was going to war, we were going with her. I kissed him then, not caring who was watching. Poured everything I felt through the bond, love and relief and exhausted joy. When we pulled apart, Eric and Soren were there. Soren looked at Varkel's body with satisfaction. It's done. It's done, I agreed. Eric was more practical. The witnesses need to confirm the challenge, and you need to complete the ritual of reclamation before sunset, or the claim won't be valid. Right, the ritual. Help me up, I said to Ryden. He did, supporting me as my legs threatened to give out. Someone Mari's daughter, I thought, brought me a cloak to cover myself. The alpha witnesses approached, 5 of them, from 5 different territories. They circled Varkel's body, studying it, then turned to me. The challenge was fair, the eldest said. Witnessed and accepted by both parties. The claim of blood right passes to Aderyn of Greenhollow by right of victory and blood. Acknowledged, the others chorused. It was official then, legal, binding. The Elden Fields were mine. The ritual of reclamation was simple but profound. I knelt in the center of the field where my father had died, my hands pressed into the soil. Around me, witnesses from every pack and rebels from every village formed a circle. Ryden knelt beside me, his hand over mine. I spoke the old words, the ones grandmother Usmara had taught me years ago. I am Aderyn, daughter of Eldrick, daughter of this land. I claim the Elden Fields not by conquest, but by blood and care. I promise to tend this land, to love it, to pass it to children who will do the same. I promise to lead with strength and mercy, to protect without dominating, to serve without enslaving. The land answered. I felt it through my palms, a rush of warmth, of welcome, of recognition. The soil beneath my hands seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Around us, flowers bloomed. Dead wheat stalks turned green. The bitter wells ran clear and sweet again. Animals that had fled returned, birds singing, rabbits darting through the brush. The land was healing. I accept you, I whispered, and I promise I will be worthy of you. The ritual was complete. Chapter 8. The aftermath of victory was less glorious than I'd imagined. There were bodies to bury, ours and theirs, wounds to tend, damage to repair. Varkel's former guards to deal with, some fled, some asked to stay, some had to be forcibly expelled. I was merciful where I could be. The guards who'd been conscripted, who'd served out of fear rather than loyalty, I gave a choice. Leave in peace or stay and help rebuild under new laws. Most stayed. Turned out a lot of them had hated Varkel too. The ones who'd enjoyed the cruelty, who'd committed atrocities by choice, those I exiled. Stripped of their pack status, marked as rogues, forbidden from ever returning. You should kill them, Soren argued. They'll just cause trouble elsewhere. Maybe, but I won't start my rule with executions. That's what Varkel would have done. Varkel's dead because you killed him. Varkel's dead because I won a legal challenge. There's a difference. Soren didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue further. Ryden stayed, of course. His second-in-command had things well in hand with the Ashclaw pack, and I needed him. Not just for the bond, though gods, it felt good to have him close again after 2 years apart, but for his experience. You need to establish a council, he said one evening as we surveyed the rebuilding efforts. You can't rule alone. It's too much, and it concentrates too much power in one person. I was thinking the same thing. A council of elders, farmers, craftspeople, people who understand different aspects of village life. Good, and you need to send envoys to the other packs. Let them know the Elden Fields are under new management and open to alliances. Already done. Eric handled it. Ryden smiled. Your brother is terrifyingly competent. I know, it's slightly concerning. We worked side by side, rebuilding what Varkel had destroyed. It was exhausting, frustrating work. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But slowly, gradually, Greenhollow began to look like home again. The farmhouse where I'd grown up was beyond saving, too damaged, too full of bad memories. We tore it down and built something new on the same foundation. Smaller, simpler, but ours. "We should plant a tree," I said one day, looking at the space where my parents had died. "Something to remember them by." "An oak," Ryden suggested, "like the one where we buried your grandmother." "Yes, an oak." We planted it together, our hands in the soil, working in comfortable silence. "This is good," Ryden said finally. "What we're building here, it's good." "It's slow." Good things usually are. 3 months after the battle, I called a gathering. Every household in Greenhollow attended. Other villages sent representatives. The alphas who'd witnessed my challenge came to observe. I stood before them in simple clothes. No armor, no weapons, just me, and announced my vision for the Elden Fields. "The bloodright tradition is broken," I said. "It's led to generations of violence, of strong wolves taking land by force and ruling through fear. I won't continue it." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The Elden Fields will pass by choice and merit, not just blood or combat. When I have children, they won't automatically inherit. They'll have to earn it by serving this land and its people. And if they're not worthy, the land will go to someone who is." More murmurs, some approving, some skeptical. "I'm establishing a council of remembrance, 9 members elected by you. The people who live here. They'll help govern, will check my power, and will ensure no single person can rule as a tyrant again." One of the elder farmers stood. "And if you turn tyrant yourself, what's to stop you?" "You are," I said simply. "All of you. The council can call for a vote of no confidence. If you decide I'm unfit to lead, I'll step down." Just like that. Just like that, I smiled. I didn't fight for this land so I could become another Varkle. I fought so we could build something better. The gathered crowd was silent for a long moment. Then someone started clapping. 1 person, then 10, then 100. It wasn't unanimous, nothing ever is, but it was a start. That night, Ryden and I lay in the loft of our new home, watching the stars through the window. "Do you think it'll work?" I asked. "This grand experiment in shared power." "I don't know, maybe not." He pulled me closer. "But you're trying something new. That's more than most alphas ever do." "I'm terrified I'll mess it up." "You will, sometimes. Everyone does." He kissed my forehead. "But you'll also get things right. And when you mess up, you'll have people around you to help fix it. That's the whole point of the council." I traced the bond mark on his shoulder, the scar I'd left there years ago, claiming him as mine. "I'm glad you're here." "Where else would I be?" "Leading your own pack, being alpha of Ashclaw." "I can do both. Ashclaw is stable. They don't need me breathing down their necks every day. And I'd rather be here with you building something new." He paused. "Unless you don't want me to stay." I kissed him to shut him up. "I want you to stay, always." "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." We made love that night in our new home, on our reclaimed land, under stars that had watched my parents and their parents and generations before that. It felt like healing, like coming full circle. Like home. Chapter 9. 5 years passed. 5 years of hard work and slow progress and occasional setbacks. 5 years of learning to lead, to compromise, to build consensus. 5 years of turning Greenhollow from a place of fear into a place of hope. The Council of Remembrance worked better than I dared to hope. 9 members, 3 farmers, 2 craftspeople, 1 healer, 1 former guard, 1 merchant, and 1 young woman who'd lost her entire family to Varkle's cruelty and had a perspective none of us could match. They kept me honest, called me out when I was being too harsh or too lenient, offered solutions I'd never have thought of on my own. "The Northfields need better irrigation," Councillor Darrow said during one meeting. "We're losing crops to drought." "We don't have the funds for a major construction project," I countered. "What if we did it ourselves? Community effort. Everyone contributes labor." It worked. A month later, we had new irrigation channels and a village that felt more united than ever. The Elden Fields thrived under shared care. Crops grew bountifully. Livestock was healthy. Children played in streets that had known only fear under Varkel's rule. Word spread. Other packs started sending envoys, curious about this new way of governing. Some were skeptical, some were intrigued. A few even started implementing similar councils in their own territories. "You're starting a revolution," Ryden said one evening, reading a letter from a pack 3 territories away. "They're calling you the alpha of the people." "That's embarrassing." "It's accurate. I'm just trying to do what my father would have wanted." "You're doing more than that. You're changing the world." Eric grew into a brilliant young man, quiet but fierce, with a mind like a steel trap. He traveled to other packs as my envoy, negotiating alliances and teaching them about the council system. "I think I've found my calling," he told me during one of his rare visits home. "I'm good at this. Diplomacy, negotiation, finding common ground." "I'm proud of you," I said. He smiled, rare for him but genuine. "I'm proud of us, of what we've built." Soren became captain of the guard, though his guard looked nothing like Varkel's Iron Fang. No one was conscripted. Everyone volunteered. And their job wasn't to terrorize the population, but to protect them from rogues, from bandits, from external threats. "I'm thinking of starting a training program," Soren said one day, "teaching village kids self-defense, not to turn them into soldiers, but to make sure they're never helpless again." "Do it," I said. He did. Within a year, dozens of young people were learning to protect themselves and each other. Some went on to join the guard. Others just carried the confidence of knowing they could fight if they needed to. All of them were stronger for it. Ryden and I built a life together in the spaces between leadership and duty. We planted gardens, raised sheep. He'd been serious about liking sheep, it turned out. Helped rebuild the village one house at a time. Made love under the stars and laughed over breakfast and argued about policy and governance and whether we needed more chickens. We did not need more chickens. We had plenty of chickens. "Marry me," he said one evening, completely out of nowhere. We were sitting on the porch of our home, watching the sunset paint the Elden Fields gold. I looked at him. "We're already bonded, mated for life. What difference does marriage make?" "Maybe none, or maybe it's one more way to show the world that we choose each other, that we're partners in everything, in love, in leadership, in building this future." He took my hand. "Marry me, Aderyn, not because we have to, but because we want to." I kissed him, tasting sunset and promise and forever. "Yes." We married in the spring, in the center of the Elden Fields. No grand ceremony, just friends and family and the land itself bearing witness. Eric performed the ceremony. He'd gotten himself ordained specifically for this purpose. Soren stood as Ryden's best man and cried, though he'd deny it later. "You are both fools," Eric said as part of the ceremony, which was probably not traditional but felt very true. "You're rushing into danger and difficult decisions and a future with no guarantees, but you're doing it together, and that makes all the difference." He bound our hands with ribbon made from wheat stalks grown in my mother's garden, preserved all these years, brought back to life. "You are bound," Eric said, "by choice, by love, by will. What you build together, let no one tear apart." "Agreed," Ryden and I said in unison. The gathered crowd cheered. Someone started playing music. Dancing broke out. It was perfect. A year later, I was pregnant. It wasn't planned. We'd been careful, thinking we needed a few more years to stabilize everything first. But apparently the universe had other ideas. "Are you upset?" Ryden asked when I told him, his hand already moving protectively to my still flat stomach. "Terrified," I admitted, "but not upset, you." "Same, terrified and thrilled and completely unprepared." "We'll figure it out." "We always do." The pregnancy was difficult. Morning sickness that lasted all day. Exhaustion that made ruling nearly impossible. Mood swings that had the council treading carefully around me. I threatened to exile Counselor Darrow for suggesting we needed better sheep pens. I told Ryden one evening, mortified. We do need better sheep pens. That's not the point. He wisely said nothing, just pulled me into his arms and let me cry for no reason at all. Our daughter was born in the autumn, during harvest time. Labor was long and brutal. Ryden held my hand through all of it, letting me squeeze until his fingers went numb. You're doing so well, he kept saying. You're so strong. I'm going to kill you, I panted. This is your fault. I know, I'm sorry, you're amazing. When she finally emerged, wailing and perfect, I forgot every moment of pain. She's beautiful, Ryden breathed, tears streaming down his face. She was, dark hair like mine, gray eyes like her father's, tiny and fierce and absolutely perfect. What should we name her? I asked. Ryden thought for a moment. Myria, after your mother. I looked down at our daughter and felt my heart crack open. Myria, yes, perfect. Little Myria grew quickly, always curious, always into everything. By the time she was 3, she was asking 1,000 questions a day and giving orders like she'd been born to lead. She's definitely your daughter, Ryden said, watching her organize the other village children into an elaborate game. She's ours, I corrected. When our son was born 2 years later, we named him Eldrick, for my father, for the legacy of peace and protection he'd tried to build. Will you tell them, Ryden asked when Eldrick was a few months old, about what happened, about Varkle and the battle? When they're old enough to understand, I said, I'll tell them about their grandparents, about the cost of violence and the price of peace, about how we tried to break the cycle. And if they ask about the blood right, about whether they'll inherit, I'll tell them the truth, that the land will be theirs if they earn it, if they serve it and love it and prove they're worthy, but that their worth isn't determined by blood alone. Epilogue. 10 years after I killed Varkle, I stood in the Elden Fields with my daughter. Myria was 7 years old, all energy and questions and fierce determination. She'd been helping me plant wheat all morning, which mostly meant getting more dirt on herself than in the ground. Mama, she said, pausing in her enthusiastic digging. Grandma Usmara is buried under the oak tree, right? That's right. And your mama and papa are here too, in the fields. Yes, their ashes are scattered here. This was the land they loved. She was quiet for a moment, processing. Do you miss them? Every day. But you have me now, and Papa and Eldrick. I do, and I'm very grateful for that. She went back to digging, then paused again. Uncle Soren says you killed a bad wolf to take back our home. I sighed, Soren and his stories. I did. Was he very bad? Yes. Did you want to kill him? I considered my answer carefully. Myria was young, but she deserved honesty. I wanted justice. I wanted to protect our people and our land. Killing him was necessary, but it wasn't what I wanted most. What did you want most? To build something better, to make sure what happened to my family never happens to another family. I set down my tools and pulled her into my lap. Violence should always be the last choice, Myria, not the first. Do you understand? She nodded solemnly. Use words first. Fight only if you have to. Exactly. But if I have to fight, I should fight to win. Yes, and then you show mercy when you've won. That's what separates leaders from tyrants. She thought about that, her small face serious. Then she brightened. Can I show you what I planted? Of course. She dragged me over to a small patch of dirt where she'd carefully placed seeds in wobbly rows. I made it neat, like you showed me. You did perfectly. Will it grow? If you tend it, if you water it and pull the weeds and protect it from animals. Growing things takes patience and care. Like leading people. I smiled, my brilliant, perceptive daughter, exactly like leading people. From the house, I could see Ryden walking toward us with Eldrick on his shoulders. Our son was laughing at something, his small hands tangled in his father's hair. Soren was behind them, now 23 and commanding the guard with a steady hand he'd lacked as an angry boy. Eric was visiting this week, a rare treat given how much he traveled, and was probably in the house poring over maps and correspondence. This was my family, my pack, my home. Mama, Myria said, drawing my attention back. Will I be alpha someday, like you? Maybe, if you want to be, if you earn it. How do I earn it? By caring more about the people than the power, by serving instead of ruling, by being brave enough to show mercy and strong enough to protect those who need it. I touched her face gently. The land will choose you if you're worthy, and worth isn't about being the strongest or the fiercest. It's about being the wisest and the kindest. She nodded, absorbing this. I'll try. That's all anyone can do. Raiden reached us then, swinging Eldrick down so both children could play together in the dirt. Everything okay? He asked me, sliding an arm around my waist. Perfect, I said and meant it. We stood there together, watching our children play in the fields my father had loved, the fields I'd fought to reclaim, the fields that would someday pass to them if they proved worthy. The land was green and growing, the village was thriving, our family was whole. It wasn't perfect. We still had problems, disputes to mediate, threats to handle, difficult decisions to make. Leading was hard work, and it probably always would be. But it was good work, important work. And I wasn't doing it alone. I'm proud of you, Raiden said quietly, reading my thoughts as he so often did. Of us, of what we've built. We broke the cycle, I said. We did. Do you think it'll last, what we've started? I don't know, but we're teaching our children to fight for it, and they'll teach theirs. And maybe, generation by generation, we make the world a little bit better. I leaned into him, feeling the bond between us, still strong, still steady after all these years. I love you. I love you too. Myria shrieked with laughter as Eldrick tried to steal her planting stick. Soren jogged over to mediate the dispute. Eric emerged from the house with books to show me. This was my life now. Not perfect, but mine. Not the revenge I'd dreamed of as a girl, but something better. Peace, family, purpose. Home. The sun was setting over the Elden Fields, painting everything gold. The wheat swayed in the breeze. The oak tree where grandmother Usmara rested rustled its leaves. And somewhere, I like to think, my parents were watching, proud of what their daughter had built, proud that she'd chosen mercy after earning the right to vengeance. Come on, I said to my family, let's go home. We walked back together as the stars began to emerge. My mate, my brothers, my children, and me. The daughter of the fields. The alpha who chose to build instead of destroy. The woman who'd learned that the truest strength wasn't in the killing, but in what you chose to do after. Where blood had once fallen, life now grew. And that was enough. The end.